Sandfall Interactive was kind enough to invite me to preview Clair Obscur Expedition 33, a turn-based RPG that isn't just another entry in the genre, it actively reinvents it, and it does so incredibly well. This preview will be spoiler-free, I'll avoid major story details, and instead focus on the gameplay, world, music, and overall experience. While this isn't a review, the build I played was a substantial chunk of the game, more than enough to get a real sense of its depth, mechanics, and vision. Now let's talk about that world and how it feels grand and just completely lived in. From the moment I stepped into Expedition 33's world, I was struck by how much care was put into its environments. The game features a variety of biomes and landscapes, each crafted with incredible detail. While not all areas are fully interactive, they still feel alive, whether you're walking through a lush forest or exploring more aquatic regions like an underwater coral biome. And then there's the music, from the overworld themes to battle tracks. Every piece of the soundtrack is tuned perfectly to heighten the atmosphere. It reminds me of Nier's ability to make its music feel like an extension of the world itself. Subtle when it needs to be, but powerful when it counts. For those who love lore and world building, journals scattered throughout the game provide insight into previous expeditions, fleshing out the events that shaped this world. While I didn't encounter any formal side quests, I got the strong impression that there's plenty more to uncover in the full release. And this story, this is something that could be truly special. Expedition 33 introduces us to Gustav, Lune, and Mael, a trio that instantly feels dynamic and layered. The writing is sharp and the voice acting is superb. Dialogue exchanges don't just sound natural, they actually feel genuine. The chemistry between characters gives off a sense of long-term camaraderie, and I found myself actually caring about the decisions they made. If the full game delivers on what this preview has set up, I could absolutely see it competing for best narrative and best performance at various award shows, amongst possibly other awards as well. But let's talk about that technical performance and what I think is impressively solid for a preview build. So Expedition 33 runs surprisingly well, but that said, there are a few noticeable hitches. Lip syncing issues were particularly evident in Lune's dialogue segments and cutscenes, occasionally dropping to 30 FPS.
When one falls, we continue.
Yes, I know.
When one falls. When one falls. Not if, when.
Outside of that, the game's overall performance felt very solid. And I don't know if that's just my experience with the lip syncing issue, but that's what I saw, at least just with Lune's dialogue segments at times, but not at all times. Everyone else's seemed to be lined up pretty well, but again, this is a preview build, so it could very well be different in the final game. Now let's talk about the real star of the show, the combat. When you hear turn-based RPG, you might think slow or even, dare I say, boring. And look, I love turn-based RPGs, but Expedition 33 is anything but slow or boring. It brings a fresh twist to the genre that I can't say I've ever quite experienced before. A combat system that demands engagement. On offense, you can attack, aim with your firearm, use a skill, use an item. Skills and firearm attacks consume AP, which can be restored by using basic attacks or even better parrying enemy attacks. On defense, you have multiple options. Dodge, which is easier to execute. Parry, similar to a perfect dodge, but riskier. Jump, indicated by an on-screen icon, and then you can counter as well after you jump. Mastering these mechanics is essential. Each enemy has unique attack patterns that demand precise timing and adaptation. Playing on normal difficulty, I found myself dying a lot. But once I started learning enemy attack patterns and honing my timing, the combat clicked in a way that felt deeply rewarding. Character-specific mechanics added another layer as well. Each character isn't just a different skin on the same mechanics. They all have unique systems that completely change how you play. Gustav has overcharge, Lune has stains, Mael has her own stances. This adds a level of variety I wasn't expecting, and it genuinely made me excited to explore different team compositions in the full game. And the enemy variety, there's a good mix with distinct attack patterns across different foes. That said, I did feel like the overall design leaned heavily into the metal and machine aesthetic. While that fits the game's theme, I guess to a degree based on what I've seen, I do hope there's more visual diversity in the full release, at least with basic enemies. Now, boss fights, however, were a standout. Each boss had unique mechanics, and overcoming them required more than just grinding levels. It demanded a genuine understanding of their patterns. The sound design plays a crucial role here as well, with audio cues helping to signal when to parry or dodge. Like, this gameplay system is just so good. I wish I could really articulate just how awesome it is, but I'm showing you on screen. It is a beautiful gameplay system that's so satisfying, which brings me to the controls and responsiveness. Beyond just mechanics, Expedition 33 feels fantastic to play. Every button press has weight, and when you land a parry, counter, or perfect dodge, it's not just satisfying to see, it's satisfying to feel. For a game made by a relatively small team, I believe 30 plus people, the crispness of the controls just surprised me. Combat mechanics rely on precision, and the game absolutely delivers on that front. But this brings us to exploration and side content. We get a glimpse of something bigger. The overworld is expansive, giving a strong first impression that there's a lot to explore. While I didn't dive into formal side quests, if there are any, the journals and environmental storytelling hints at a world filled with history and secrets. One of my favorite areas was an underwater coral region, which gave me strong Final Fantasy IX and Final Fantasy VII vibes. If this is just a small taste of what the game has to offer, I can't wait to see what else it has in store. I played roughly 3 hours of what is at least 4 hours of just beelining this preview build, and then there was tons of stuff to explore outside of that. It just is one of those preview builds I could have quite literally spent maybe 7-8 hours in if I really wanted to explore everything, even possibly more than that. Moving on to the user interface, the UI is both clean and artistic. Though it took a little time to get fully accustomed to it, it all seems so splashy and so much quick movement. But once I did, everything clicked. It looked great. I was quick with the prompts. Everything just connected perfectly. Every detail of this game, at least from the preview build, just culminated into something that was a great experience, an RPG experience that I've been desiring for a very long time. And this is where I'm going to give you my final thoughts. When I first saw Clair Obscur Expedition 33's trailers, I was already intrigued by the plot, characters, and combat. But after this preview, I'm fully on board. This game takes elements from classics like Final Fantasy X's turn-based combat and Nier's aesthetic and music, but pushes them further, layering in fresh ideas and mechanical depth that give it a distinct identity. If the full release builds on what I've played here, I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes one of the standout RPGs of the year, possibly even games of the year. Yes, a game in the year we believe GTA 6 to be coming out. Sandfall Interactive has something special on their hands, and I can't wait to dive deeper when the full game releases. When that happens, I'll be back with a full review, really diving deep into everything that we can without spoiling the game. But for now, consider me incredibly impressed with what I have experienced and kind of almost thrown back by the fact that a team this big delivered something so good. Don't sleep on these smaller development teams, guys. They are creating some of the best games out here, quite clearly when we look at Clair Obscur Expedition 33's preview build.
Is that a Kestrel?
Intruders! Vær så god, biler! Regarde, ruffian!